Alrighty, welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. We are here to continue to break down WWE and all its good things, bad things, and everything in between. We are a man down. Tim had to work, so that's just what it be, but we shall continue to guide the ship. So there's a lot to get to. I feel like Raw and SmackDown are kind of a mute point at this point. We'll kind of roll over them and kind of give our little bit of thoughts. Obviously, we're more intrigued to talk about Crown Jewel. So obviously, so you have Raw start off basically, and you have this. We had this reunion last week with Jimmy and Jay and kind of squashing the beef per se. And really, there wasn't much tension between Jimmy and Jay, anyways. So I feel like this was an easy squash. Obviously, you know, the Roman stuff is a whole different monster. So you know, the bloodline still does not seem complete, or I guess the OG bloodline, we'll call them. It still seems a little bit not complete, and I feel like Bloodline 2.0 is still hitting their stride more right now. And honestly, Bloodline 2.0 is no dominance without Jacob Fatu. Like, I really think that honestly, Bloodline 2.0 is nothing without Jacob Fatu. If it was Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Solo Sikoa, big freaking whoop, okay? They'd be about as strong as the LWO, okay?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Jacob Fatu is the absolute X factor of the Bloodline 2.0.
yeah.
So we have Sheamus defeats Ludwig. I mean, I don't see a lot of like long-term beef with that. Obviously, they had a little bit of past stuff. Ludwig finally came back, and I feel like Ludwig is basically he's only really known for being the lackey for Gunther and the ladies and gentlemen. Like I that was actually pretty good, but like and so it's unfortunate. Obviously, you have Giovanni's basically just lost in the shuffle on SmackDown, which I'm surprised he's not released. To be honest, I don't feel like he has anything for him. Maybe main event matches, but I really don't think he's Raw or SmackDown material. Um, Maybe there's something there we don't know, but
Yeah.
Ivy Nile defeats Zelina Vega. I mean, American made and LWO stuff just seems like filler to me. I don't see any long term anything for them. I mean, maybe like we said before, this is kind of LWO's their slight beef with another faction, I guess, but I don't see this being more than jobber material, honestly. And it sucks because you have Rey Mysterio,
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
one of the goats. So it's unfortunate that this is the jobber status, but
I think it's just the ebb and flow. Everyone goes through those stages. It's like, you're hot, then you're not, then you're warming up, then you're not, then you're on fire, and then it's the ebb and flow. At least he still works there.
right. And
Yeah.
I guess you do have to have the filler, and that's what it is. It's the appetizer to the main courses of WWE per se. So obviously Seth Rollins came back in basically annihilated, Bronson Reed. So now we've had this rejuvenation of the beef with those two. Raw definitely, man, Bronson Reed, the fact that he's getting the push he is now, I don't care if he's taking L's from Seth Rollins or he's beating Seth Rollins or he's putting Bronson or Braun Strowman through a freaking car. I don't care. I love that he's getting this push. I think it's well deserved. I think he's put in the grind. Um, and obviously now he's feuding with Seth Rollins because he's back, after getting 6 tsunamis, which I don't care how much you think wrestling is fake ish, but man, 380 pounds falling on you, even if you're holding your hands up, still has to hurt. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
That is a
I
whole lot of man.
yeah, I couldn't imagine, but I mean, that's why they get paid the big bucks, you know. That's why they get the
Exactly.
time off.
And so we finally, so obviously last week we basically got the reemergence of Eric, of the Viking Raiders slash now War Raiders. Definitely good to see him back. They got thrust into the tag team number one contenders. So obviously they defeated Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio and the New Day to basically get a shot at the Judgment Day's titles. I think give it to them.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I
I
and that might even be in the cards because with the type of injuries that they had, um, Eric is starting a family, Ivar's just doing his thing. You know, they both have been, you know, like I just said, they've both been injured. Maybe this is kind of like they're right off into the sunset. You know,
right.
they went back to the War Raiders as their name. They're doing some really great work. You know, they might get a run or two. Then at that end of the run, they're like, "Hey, man, we're hanging it up. We're, you know, top
Yeah.
guys out." You know, just to steal a phrase. Uh, you know, and maybe that's what it is. You know, maybe within a
Yeah.
year they will have retired, and or now they're coaching or doing whatever. But yeah, if they can stay on fire and they have some good stories with them, yeah, let's go. See what they can do.
And it might just be the reemergence of it all. Maybe this
Oh
is
yeah.
like now that because essentially Ivar was kind of out with some injuries too, a little bit here and there.
Hmm.
Obviously he did the singles thing for a little while, and obviously very impressed with him as a singles competitor. So definitely showed us what he can do as a singles competitor. But obviously he functions way better in a tag team. I
Hmm.
think that's just somehow some wrestlers when they've been a tag team for so long, it it's I don't know, like it's a different vibe from being a singles competitor versus a tag team because it feels like there's a little bit more to the matches because
Yeah.
you can you have, the two-person finisher type deals, or you have all these extra move sets because you have more going on in the ring. And some people can jump out of a tag team, that being like Jey Uso, that they after being in a tag team for so long jumps out on his own, does fantastic, but it's not for everyone. But
Right.
we don't know. We that's the mantra. We don't know. We'll wait and see, because this could just be the catapult to the War Raiders just going crazy. We don't know.
Let them do it.
And that's WWE for you, man, because you never know, like, when all of a sudden they'll be like, yeah, these plans are done. Sorry, we're scrapping these.
Yeah.
So, they're gonna go out and perform at a high level as they do, especially Eric being back, which is it's just good. They're just a different kind of tag team than most, just because it's more like Ivar. Like, he's a big
Hmm.
dude that's agile as hell, doing
Yeah.
spinning kicks and cartwheels and
Yep.
top rope stuff
Yeah.
like it's not even that hard.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
there's not he's like in a handful of guys that are that agile,
right,
um, at his size, and with the injuries, and with whatever else he's got going on, to be able to consistently show his athleticism and not be afraid to show his athleticism, and
right.
so yeah.
So we end the night obviously with, Dominic basically saying, "Oh, you're going to be facing a former champion, blah blah blah." Like last week or the beginning of the show, I guess he was still wondering who his competitor was going to be. Um, Ends up obviously fighting Damian Priest, and although Dominic gets the weak ass roll up, he's honestly appalling to be taken seriously. Like, I mean, I don't like. You see, honestly, that 75% of that match was Damian Priest kicking and beating the holy hell out of him. Okay,
you know
like,
how many times have we seen that type of match with that outcome, and we still keep coming back to it. Like at some particular point, we've got to see, someone that we like, which is Damian Priest, um, just beat someone's ass and get the win, and then he's like, I want more. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that
Eat
is so
more.
much more
Yeah,
rare than
it's almost like
anything.
holding him back and doing anything with Judgment Day. Honestly, like unless he's fighting Finn Balor, I don't even care about the rest.
You know what?
You know,
Yeah.
and the fact that Dominic, his most of his wins have just been roll ups, which really makes him look even weaker than he already looks.
But doesn't that roll up finisher make him even more of a heel because it's so cheap
stupid.
and easy?
It's so
It's
bad
so
that
and
it
it's like,
works.
it's like I beat you with a
you
roll up.
hate to acknowledge that it works because it's so weak. Like, I mean, and the thing is, and there's so many weak finishers, even that are defined as finishers. Like the roll up, honestly, sadly, it's like it's not much different. Like you think of how many weak moves and how many weak finishers that there is in the long history. I mean, Santino's freaking Cobra thing. I mean,
I just saw him a
Bailey's
clip
Rose
of him.
Plant.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
clip of
you
him doing
know,
that. Yeah.
and so like, in the grand scheme of things, you're like, well, whatever. I guess it works. I mean, it's not ideal,
It's
but it makes
pro
you hate him
wrestling.
more. And maybe that's what he's doing his job. Like that's the job of heels, is for people like us to be on podcast and hating him. Okay, like you're doing your job so well, I hate it. Okay, like it's like the AEW stuff last week, right? Like
yeah.
you're pissing me off to the point where I'm talking about it, but I'm
So
talking about it.
I have like gone through these phases where people's work has affected me on such a level, like I hate their personality. And people can say to their blue in the face, oh, he's great behind, backstage, he's wonderful, he donates plasma for free, he rescues cats on the weekend. I don't know, but his character on TV sucks, so that means he sucks.
Right.
And the number one person has always been The Miz. Now I know that you like The Miz, and you know what? The Miz's body of work proves
it's the reverse. I enjoy him with the person outside the ring, and honestly in the ring, honestly too. But it's the fact that like some people only like one side of the care of like, so you have the actual person that you love, and then when he's on TV, you're like, God, I just hate just strangled it. Like, you want to Bart Simpson his ass so bad through the TV. And it's
do.
but like
and
I think, but that's the greatness of it all. Like, is that like it's the people you love to hate and you hate to love. Like the fact that they're even getting talked about is that's them doing their job, right? Like
absolutely.
The absolute weak assness of the Judgment Day. It's stupid, but guess what? It makes people talk about it, and it's stupid, but that's what they do. That's what the job is. I mean, think of how goofy Paul Bearer was. But he had his part to play, and he did it better than anybody could have done for the Undertaker or Kane or any of it all. Like, and so sometimes that's just the greatness of it all, right? And that's Judgment Day in a nutshell. Like, they came out as this like Brood 2.0, and then now they're like this Bro 2.0, and they're like the egg after it's cracked. Okay, like you have the strength of an egg, surface to surface. That was the original Judgment Day, and now we have scrambled eggs.
But I think it might become one of those things where it's just this revolving door, like Bullet Club, but not as influential as Bullet Club. And however, I think it has a place. I don't think it's that high on the roster. I think this work that Karrion Kross is doing on Raw is more interesting than Judgment Day for me. And I want to see more because we were just talking about The Miz and segueing over to, Judgment Day and Wyatt Six, Final Testament, because people doing really great work. When they announced the kidnapping of The Miz, I watched that
Oh, that
video.
was so good.
I watched that
I
video
cannot
with
wait to
Karrion
see the
Kross.
outcome of that. I'm
What
I'm
what
on
did it
pins
for
and
me
needles.
what did it for me was R-Truth slapping the shit out of The Miz.
And
And
then
then
walks away.
just walks away. And then who did he run into? He he ran into Pete Dunne and said, "Hey Butch, have you seen Pete?" And he kept walking. And I immediately said,
R-Truth
like,
is the greatest, almost
like,
freelance. Like
yeah.
he's like an
Oh,
improv guy that gets put into WWE.
yeah.
And I
I'm
mean
just
everything from Little Jimmy,
yes. To
in
go from someone that I hate, like on TV, that might be a good caring person behind the stage, to someone that's like, you know what? If they told me that you are mean to the makeup person, R-Truth, I wouldn't believe them because I love what you do on TV.
like
Like if he
well,
was a
that's the
jerk
thing
in
is it's like
catering, I wouldn't
he
care.
like I mean he's like timeless. They should start calling him timeless R-Truth.
Timeless, timeless.
Like he looks the same as he did 30 years ago.
Just longer hair.
Ever since his hero John Cena wrestled, and
Yep.
you know, like it's just like he's the comic relief of WWE. Period. Like
Yeah.
they could literally have him on any show. He could do his own TV show. He could do his own friggin'
Yep.
R-Truth TV. Like and we would eat it up because we love R-Truth because
Yep.
he just
Long it was just authentic and
oh
organic,
my god.
just like, yeah. So the video that Karrion Kross did in his hotel room, I like that Karrion
Miley,
Kross. Um,
let Jordan in.
I like what Karrion Kross is doing, and for me, Karrion Kross is more interesting than the Judgment Day because I
Yep.
want to see more. I want to see how influentially bad he can be, especially with AOP. I want to see him do more of this kind of like manipulation
Yeah,
with,
I mean,
with that.
I think it's good for his character 100% though. I
Yeah.
mean, because he's dabbling in so many different ponds right now of different groups and everything, and I think
Right.
that I feel like he has a better draw because I don't know, like I've said before, is that I buy them as dominant more than Judgment Day
Mhm.
because I'm sorry, AOP, give them a story with Judgment Day. Let them just absolutely destroy Carlito, Finn Balor, JD McDonough, like Dominic. Just let them run roughshod.
I like that. I would, however, I think I would like to see AOP against Wyatt Six, Eric Rowan, and Joe Gacy. I think that could be a good matchup. I
Yeah,
think Dexter Loomis might be more of a powerhouse than Gacy, so maybe um
yeah.
Rowan and
It's
Loomis. But I think there's a history between Karrion Kross and Dexter Loomis. So maybe explore that, and maybe
there's a lot of
maybe
segues.
yeah. There's a lot you can do with it. So let me have a little bit more with that. Let Judgment Day play the background a little bit. Um, you know, write them off TV if you have
Yeah,
to get me like this, Final Testament Wyatt
yeah.
Six kind
There's
of thing.
it's that thing is there's so many things intertwined in the webs
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of different stories where like there was things, that you could come full circle to per se,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and so I mean it's like the same stuff with like the bloodline, like I mean you have, the Jimmy and Jay beef, you have the Jay and Roman beef, then you have the Sammy and now essentially Jay beef, it seems like, and so like there's these little cracks, you know, because obviously, like, Sammy comes out and he's kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm going to hug you. And then I'm not, like, and so there's a lot of different angles, I guess you could play per se. I mean, there's so many, like, I guess, non-finished stories that you could basically revert back to. Um, but I mean, that's the thing is that if you watch it enough and you've digested enough of it, like when
Mm-hmm.
things come around full circle to the average fan and be like, okay, it's just another segment. Like, no, this is a full circle moment. I mean, that's essentially CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Like,
Right.
this is a 10-year in the making revolving door. I mean, and so, but unless you've watched the product for a long time, you don't really know those first full circle moments.
True.
So SmackDown. So obviously, Nia Jax comes out, Liv Morgan comes out, they start chirping. Here comes Tiffany Stratton, basically like, I'm gonna cash in, blah blah, on one of you guys, and which there's nothing wrong with calling your shot if you're gonna follow through. I mean,
Yep.
there's cash-ins that have been called, said, yep, I'm gonna do it. Most of them are mysteries, obviously, but and so now you have Liv Morgan obviously defeating Tiffany Stratton, and I feel like, and I've said this a million times, is that Liv Morgan is nothing without Judgment Day, and it's the only reason why she's holding the title. And because her holding the title is a slap in the face to Rhea Ripley is all it is, and that's her run in a nutshell right now. We've said this before, it's a very C plus, B minus run because it only works in the confines of the Judgment Day storyline for her to have the title. Because if she was gone from the Judgment Day, she'd fall off and fall just. She'd probably get released in like a year and a half. And so
Mm.
sometimes the storyline holds you in WWE, and you just hope that there's something beyond that in the works. But if it's not, then you better make this story worth it. So, um, so now you have Street Profits facing Pretty Deadly, which seems to be just a nonsensical match. Um, Street Profits have kind of been fizzling a little bit. I mean, it's unfortunate. At one point in time when you had, before the combination of Raw and SmackDown tag titles, they had plenty of runs on both Raw and SmackDown. Now they've seemed to have gotten lost in the shuffle, which, you know what? It happens. And it is just what it is. But the fact that they're still going out there and performing like they are, you know, I'm just going to work hard until you got something else for me. And I
Yep.
think that's the history of a lot of WWE wrestlers is that they get caught in that shuffle. I mean, and I think it's what it is. But if you can survive in the small stuff, they'll prepare you for the big stuff.
Yeah.
And because even if you think of like Liv Morgan back in the Riot Squad days, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was a goofy little group. She had her goofy little
Yeah.
outfits, and she was a goofy character. Obviously it was run more by Ruby Riot, and Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan were kind of secondary, to Ruby Riot. But obviously she's grinded it out, and she's in a good storyline, and it works for now. So
It,
it's the it's the full circle stuff of WWE, man. Eventually, you work hard enough, they're gonna see that you're working hard enough, right?
yep.
I mean, that's the same thing. So, like, obviously, recently Tegan Knox, Indy Hartwell, and Baron Corbin got released, you know, and obviously, Candice LeRae's kind of doing her own thing as of recent, and she's kind of going on this like heel type of venture. And so I
Right.
think that they're seeing what she can do as an individual, and now they're gonna push her to see what she can do, working her way up the card. And I think that's again the credit to working hard and putting in the work and doing the dumb matches, doing the stupid gimmicks, doing all that to basically get you to the next level. And I feel like I don't think Candice LeRae's like is Becky Lynch status,
Oh,
but I definitely think that she's going to be a great mid-card competitor. And I feel like if they heel turned her and and they maybe kept the Poison Pixie mantra of her, but maybe just went full black, maybe changed her music, made a little bit a little bit more metal, maybe,
you
maybe
know,
kind of build her into that like a darker character.
I don't see her like going that way. That to me sounds like an Alexa Bliss, which I think could have some great matches with Candice LeRae. I
Mm-hmm.
think what I want the Candice LeRae I want was the one that we got when she was with her husband Johnny Gargano in the way. I want that, kind of like typical entitled wife, type of
Well,
thing.
and
I
yeah,
not Chelsea Green levels, but
no.
definitely like I'll take a shortcut to get the win,
I
but
mean, and that was, and the thing is I'm like, the wave thing was the catapult to what we know as Austin Theory now. You know, it was a very, very soft heelish thing that they did on NXT. And obviously he was the first one to get called up out of the group.
Mhm.
Youngest United States champion of all time, period. So obviously he put in the work, and now Austin Theory's with Grayson Waller, and they're two big egomaniacs, which it works. You
Yeah.
know, the what do they call themselves? The A Town Down Under.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, which I think what it's a good play on the whole A Town Down mixed with
Mhm.
the fact that obviously Grayson Waller's Australian, so Great Wall Down Under. And so and it works because they even though you see a lot of tension amongst them on the show with whether oh I'm not gonna he almost tosses him in to get beat up and he gets out of the way or but like the fact that they're two egomaniacs, it works.
Yeah.
So um so obviously so we get the end of meanwhile I mean I guess in the middle of Raw, which seems to be a weird bloodline spot to be in the middle of the show. But obviously, it was pre-recorded, so obviously I kind of seen stuff beforehand. But like, so you basically have, you know, Roman and Jimmy come out and they're kind of talking their talk, and Jimmy's like, "Hey, you got to squash this, blah blah." Jay comes out. I mean, at the end of the day, they like Jay is more concerned about the family than he is like rekindling things with Roman Reigns. Obviously, he gave him a very very strict guideline like we're going to be equal, we're not going to and as soon as I sniff out anything I'm gone. And I think that's honestly how it's going to go. And I feel like the second Roman does something, we're really going to see Jimmy just go, and Jimmy's just going to be on his own. Maybe Jimmy and Jay reunite, and maybe they both go to Raw and they do what they do. And but it's so weird because we're like for those 4 years. 4 years is a long time that we had, the bloodline stuff start. And so
Mhm.
it's crazy to think outside of how long that was to now seeing like, the
Yeah.
bloodline 2.0, which, I would rather see God by themselves. I'd
Yep.
rather see
Yep.
Jacob Fatu by himself.
Yeah.
Solo go do something.
Yeah. I think
It's
I would not be surprised that within like 2 years we get this solo redemption story. I have no like hesitation in saying that Jacob Fatu is going to be a champion.
oh,
I
100%.
think I think he's gonna beat the brakes off of Braun Breaker. I think he's just going to be an absolute problem when he gets by himself. And I think of out of all of the people in that bloodline, I do believe 100% that it'll be Solo trying to reconcile with his brothers.
And maybe we get the OG, and then God does her own thing. Jacob Fatu does his own thing. Because honestly, Jacob Fatu is an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you put him by himself, he'd do just fine. Really, the Bloodline 2.0 does not work without Jacob Fatu, because Tongalo and Tama Tonga and Tongalo, like, they don't scare me. Jacob Fatu, him just standing there scares me. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, he could easily, I mean, he's such a hybrid too. I mean, he's a tall dude, he's a strong dude, he's a scary dude. Like, I would not want to cross paths with him, period. And I think the best thing, like you said, and maybe in the next, year and a half or two, we get, a division at some point where God goes and does her own thing. And, Jacob does his own thing. Maybe Solo falls back in line. I don't know. That's kind of what, that's the pondering of it all of, because it would make sense. Because, I mean, you look at Jacob Fatu, like, who's a parallel to Jacob Fatu? Like, if you go back in the archives, like, I mean, who do you parallel Jacob Fatu with? You really think about it.
Like, are you referring to, like, who do you compare him to? Like, ring presence and, like...
Yeah, I mean, just overall character. I mean, it's
Umaga, for WWE. His dad, Jacob Fatu's dad, is the Tongan Kid. I've never seen any of his matches, but apparently he was like, I believe he did work in the WWE, maybe while it was the WWF. But I'm not familiar with his father's work. I've seen like the rest of pro wrestling fandom. If you have not seen Jacob Fatu's work, like long matches, have been a fan of it, you've seen like clips of him, and you're just thinking like, this dude is doing moonsaults, and splashes.
Oh yeah,
and
I mean, it's
he's just so so athletic in him, and his presence is so it's so real, and it's
and like,
so
he doesn't
intense.
Even have to talk. Yeah. He lets his actions do the talking.
Yeah.
I mean, like that pop-up Samoan drop is insane. Like, he puts a whole new twist on a Samoan drop, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna put him up here, I'm gonna fall back. Like, no, like, he pops him up, drops him, and it's like, it's this whole thing. And I think
it's a very
adds the theatrics to that move.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's fun to watch. I mean, I can't
whether you want to be a part of the theatrics or not. He just has
right. I mean, like, it's just like, I can't wait till he gets on his own.
Right.
Like, but I mean,
they could really screw this up with him, because if we get an expectation of a Jacob Fatu Unleashed, we might get a watered down indie version of Jacob Fatu, which I don't think anyone would tolerate. Not at all. What we want is, oh, you're on Netflix, so I can push the envelope a little bit. I can be more, I mean, it's that vibe.
He kind of like, he's like, I honestly compare him like to almost like Braun Breaker, like just the Samoan version. Like, they're just both so damn intense, and everything they do is just so intense.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just, it's really fun to watch, because if you think about like, okay, yes, like, he's been doing this for a while, blah, blah, but like, if you like think of it from like I've never watched wrestling, right? Let's say I've never watched wrestling, and
Mhm.
I see this dude that like he's
Right.
280, 290, whatever he is. He's like 6'5", 6'6", whatever, and like he's doing these moves, and you're like, how in the world? You know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't even seem possible. I mean, like the crap that freaking Ivar was doing, like or Bam
Yeah.
Bam Bigelow. You're like,
Yeah.
you're looking
Oh
at it, and like
yeah.
if you've
Like
never watched wrestling, you're like, how in the world is this dude doing this stuff? Like,
yeah,
it's
like
athleticism on steroids.
yeah. And the fact that he lost a significant amount of weight before he arrived
Hmm.
only makes him that much more intimidating, that much more of a presence in the ring, and someone to like really say like, if WWE screws this up under the Triple H era, you've got to wonder, does Triple H really like certain big guys, or does he
Right, and
not?
it's
Because Jacob Fatu didn't come up in the Triple H system.
right.
It was like, it's like, I want
It's
more Samoans.
here's the
Who do we
blood here's the
know?
bloodline. Pick one.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
So
because
it's like,
I'm waiting for Zilla to show up. I mean, like
oh, with that
it's that
new
weird like
WWE
when
ID, that new WWE ID,
yeah,
I don't see how he could not show up in their system somewhere at some
right,
particular point, and I think with Zilla Fatu's outside the ring antics and how he interacts with companies and stuff, I think his level of professionalism, from what we've heard, um, could be the thing that holds him back. But if
right,
he's got some people that are going to mentor him,
right,
really like help, streamline him. If Imagine what kind of professionalism he can learn from Randy Orton, who, for all intents and purposes, has like a very similar, experience from being like an entitled brat
right.
jerk, very
Well,
unprofessional,
in
you
the
know.
fact that like the WWID thing is basically kind of I don't know what the term is, but like acclimating essentially, these people on an indie scene where there's not much real like it's more about the action than the stories. It's just kind of, because you're not in big ass stadiums or anything like that. It's very like, real low grade, low population, low popularity per se,
Yeah,
and so to acclimate them into what WWE is, I think that's really good because now you have because like the developmental stuff at NXT is a lot of people that were in the performance center and
mhm,
they've come up under the performance center umbrella versus people coming from other brands of smaller wrestling promotions to like kind of acclimate them into the thing as far as how WWE does things and stuff like that. I think that's going to make the product better. I think
yeah,
we're gonna basically be able to. I hate to say avoid, certain wrestlers that are still stiff, but like,
I look at it, I really look at, and how I've interpreted the WWE ID was, it was more so for independent promotions like in the territory to get some training, some programs, education courses that they can take, um, their students, and help acclimate them to, um, starting to learn the WWE way, instead of like saying like, all right, you learned the indie way, but now you've got to learn the WWE. But let's
yeah.
just say like,
So
we,
according to what it
open
says,
that up.
it says, especially as WWE announced WID, short for WWE Independent Development. The new program has launched to identify, support, and develop independent wrestling schools and wrestling talent. In a press release, WWE announced that they launched the program to develop and developmental program designated to provide independent wrestlers with a potential path to WWE. So it just seems more like it's another segue
Hmm.
the Performance Center.
Right.
Because there's a lot of wrestlers that do have their own wrestling schools. Cody has
Yep.
his, Seth Rollins has his,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
there are already a
Let's not
lot of
forget Booker
those
T has
there.
his, and yeah.
And so I think this is just WWE coming alongside in, providing more, more
Yeah,
than what they already have, with a lot of wrestlers having their own schools. And I feel like this is kind of like WWE like lifting up those,
right.
those
And maybe
schools.
that's like, yeah, that whether it's financial contribution or whether it's training or fast tracking them into tryouts, we have no idea, what it is. I did, see on the internet as well, that, people were really concerned that WWE could, be having influence or locking in certain independent performers so they could do so they couldn't do like other indie companies, maybe like the AEWs or New Japans and things like that. But what they could do is work in a certain system that had a certain WWE way of doing things. um
I mean, either
yeah.
way, I think honestly, it's just good, and I feel like it's more of an acclamation to
Hmm.
just them developing, because when you think of all the independent promotions, in the, let's say, the 70s, 80s, early 90s,
Hmm.
and you have all of those, and I feel like this is just doing the same thing, right? I mean, you think of all the ones that wrestled in, OVW, right? Like your
Yeah.
John Cena's, your Randy Orton's, all these different, people that we have now, and we've seen how good that was for them. And now, hey, let's get a bigger boat. Let's lift, let's, provide people with more, development, all the stuff that comes with being WWE. Because now I feel like, when you're in those schools, you're not just learning wrestling, you're learning, how to do, the promo school, the how to take bumps, and you're learning the whole thing. And then now when you, let's say you get to the next level, let's say you get to NXT or something, now you're more prepared. And I think preparation is key into developing talent in the long run.
Yeah,
Because
I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. The concern that I have is that I would like for performers to own their characters, to own their name, image, likeness, for them to interact with WWE as a business and be able to protect themselves and still have the opportunities to go say, I'm going to go do 6 months in Japan on my own and learn it my way, or I'm going to go to Mexico for a year, and not be beholden, whether contractually or elsewise, to WWE if they want to have those experiences. Because I know, a lot of other performers are thinking like, in order for me to be better than what's out there now, I've got to have, I've got to learn, and I've got to, experience these things on my own. Like,
yeah,
I,
I mean, it's
yeah,
there's so
that's
many
my
segues
position.
into, like, this is obviously new, and
Mhm.
so, we'll just kind of see how it plays out over the next, like, let's say 6 months to a year.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll see where we're at, like, come SummerSlam next year or something, and we'll
right.
see, because obviously, like, we're not gonna see the, what's happened in it, because obviously
You,
things can
you
change.
know,
It's
two things. One, this program may have, there may be something similar that the UFC does. So maybe
mhm,
that's where this comes from. Two, this
yeah,
program might not exist in a year. They might shut it down because,
right.
whatever have you. Um, and or three, it might be something that they've always been doing and we don't know, but they're finally, you
Right.
know,
They're
you know,
putting a name. They're putting a name to it,
yep, and they're
and
making it public.
introducing it as something new to us
Right.
versus like it's been going on. Because obviously, like, obviously they, they go to promo school, they go to like a lot of this, and so like, like yeah, NXT is 2 hours long, but what are they doing amongst the rest of it? The
Yeah. Yeah.
Monday, the Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so like,
Hmm.
and I think, like you say, it probably is something that's been going on for a while. They've just
Hmm.
tried to put a name to it, and you know what, and maybe it'll just be a thing now, right? Maybe
Yeah.
there's just it's like when you get college level athletes that make it to the
Hmm.
NFL, but they have to go through these financial classes and other things that entail to be on the next level. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe it'll be for a year, maybe it'll be for 6 months, maybe it'll just drop off the face of the earth. We don't know. But we'll keep you in the loop of what we find out. So Crown Jewel in its entirety, I thought was very subpar.
Mid.
Um, exactly mid. And I would not. I would give this a C plus B minus. I
Hmm.
thought, and obviously, like we talked about beforehand, like yes, this is probably more for Saudi, but the only
Yeah.
thing is that the implications that they had at this show they pertain to the main product in the US. So I feel like we got some, we'll just run through it here. So
Yep.
match number 1 out the gate, you have the Bloodline 2.0 versus Roman Reigns and the Usos. Um, it just seemed a little bit cliche. I will say, in the only real part of this match that I seen any kind of genuineness to was the fact that Jay did not tag in Roman when he did his whole, and basically, flexing his tribal chief bravado there for a second. And then, obviously he was barely in the match. Obviously they ended up losing the match. Um, you know, and basically the whole angle of this whole match was the fact that Solo pinned Roman, because obviously Roman pinned him last time. So now we're in this best of 3 situation here. I don't know when they'll let it loose. Um, maybe, because now that we've had this essentially 3-on-3, but obviously we have an outside. Like, I don't know. It's tough to figure out who that fourth person is,
Yeah.
because
And like,
you
where does
because
that fourth person go? Like, do you
in
stack the deck against, you know, Roman and the
it's
Usos, or do you like kind of
because
even it out?
well because the end of the match, we basically got this basically Sammy kicking Roman in the face, essentially because Soul got out of the way or whatever, which so because you had, so the week prior you basically had Jimmy and Jay outside, and then you seen Sammy talking with Solo Sikoa. And I honestly feel like after what we got in the match, obviously that was kind of like a pretend, because he's like, oh, Solo's like this, ask for the hug or whatever, and then he comes in and then, hits him with a move or whatever. So I feel like Sammy seems to be the only plausible one, currently to join them.
Hmm.
But you can't help the fact that, Solo got out of the way and Sammy kicked Roman. And so it's I feel like over the next couple weeks, I feel like we're going to either get a reunion, a hashing as it was, because the whole bloodline in its entirety, whether it's Jimmy J, Roman, or if Sammy joins the whole thing, is that there's going to have to be a massive amount of wiping out debts and clean slating it, because there's so much that happened. Obviously, Sammy got excommunicated, but he did get embraced, and so there's so much stuff amongst those four, right? Because
Right.
Jimmy essentially he squashes beef with Roman, he squashes beef with Jay, but Jay's like, these are my terms, and if any of these red flags pop up, I'm out. And I don't know if how that match was, is that I don't know if we'll make it to Survivor Series War Games. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like it's because obviously Jason had a show, so he doesn't really have to dedicate too much time to the nonsense. But at the same token, he has to, because we
Right.
need to know if he's in or he's out. Because Jimmy's been very vocal to Roman in the sense of like, hey, we're not the ones, we're not this, we're not holding gold, we're not running the table, we're not doing what we used to do. And so it's unfortunate, but essentially it feels like Bloodline 2.0 is the new Bloodline. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that those 4 great years of Roman and Jimmy and Jay and essentially Solo, like I feel like it's just over. And it's
You know,
it's
I
tough.
think
It's a
it's
tough pill to swallow.
I think it's just gonna get more dark and more intense. Um, because the really big rabbit in the room that we keep like passing over is The Rock. You know, what is The Rock's role in all of this?
Right.
It's not just Cody. You know what
Yeah.
I'm
It's
saying?
it's
It's
yeah.
it's
It's
you know,
he's
when
I
that drops, that's when we get the actual
right.
story.
I mean, but
And
like
yeah,
we have, let's see,
that's
what,
gonna be
one, two,
intense.
three. So we have like roughly 4 weeks, or well, I guess this week, next week, and then the following, to basically see where that lies. And the troublesome of it all is like, when are we going to get some kind of definitive direction to this? Because obviously
Mm,
we already kind of we thought that this War Games match was going to be at War Games, and we kind of got a precursor to it, you
but
know, at
this
Crown
wasn't
Jewel.
this wasn't a War Games match. This was
Well,
just,
but that's what I'm
this
saying.
was
But it's
like,
like, but we like they didn't let this stuff boil and then have it end at War Games now. So like, what is it?
oh,
And obviously, there's obviously still 20 different avenues to War Games,
right.
and so it's just weird that they kind of push that match into Crown Jewel. Obviously, because you want Roman Reigns there, you want that big, you want the headliner, you want the needle mover, and so he definitely
Yeah.
wasn't in God mode,
Oh no, you know what?
and so
That was pure. That entire involvement purely had to be at the request of the Saudi entertainment
right,
committee, government, whatever it's called, to have them there because he's obviously a huge entertainment draw in Saudi Arabia. So do I mind
oh
that
yeah, I don't
portion of the
mind that it was
story
there,
being told there? I don't mind that portion of the story being told there because it would have been on TV and it probably would have had the same effect that it had,
right,
and it people would have felt disappointed or
right,
let down. But there were other more interesting things that happened at
right.
Crown Jewel
It
that
was the one
that was better.
match that was more of a draw, not because of the story, but because who's in that story.
Right.
And so that like we've talked about beforehand, is that yeah, this was for Saudi. This wasn't really this wasn't for us. Essentially, it was because I'm glad they did this rather than like bring Goldberg in or bring Sting in or bring all these old people in there that essentially like let's sail off into the
Well,
sunset.
it won't be Sting because he signed an
Yeah,
AEW Legends contract.
yeah.
But Goldberg, well, obviously.
I want Goldberg's son to show up on the PC,
Oh my
man.
God. If his son shows up and his son looks like an absolute monster like Goldberg did, I'll just be like, well, you know,
You know
all
what
right then.
though? It's a better father son thing than the Mysterios. Okay, like you
It
you
could be
get
much
like
more believable, especially if his son has, you know,
even a
does
even
not
a,
have
a small portion of the talent that his dad had. Like
just if he
in
can just if he can just perform
right,
longer matches,
right.
then
I
we
mean,
all win.
he could essentially run the same gauntlet as Braun Breaker. I mean, you know, obviously, I think his son's only like 18, 20, something in that realm. Probably
Oh, he's
less
still
than
got to
that.
go.
But
He still has to go to college and play football
so,
before he can.
but like,
Yeah.
I think in 4 years, if we see it, I'll be like, all right, let's go. I'm for it.
Mhm.
So if Goldberg's listening, I want your son to be in WWE eventually. So, but and he probably isn't listening because anyways. But no, I think it would it'd be cool from a just being a fan of Goldberg and the monstrosity that he was.
Mhm.
But so we'll keep on a rolling here through Crown Jewel. So Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, obviously win the Fatal 4-Way.
All right.
This
Just really quickly, how did you perceive Jade Cargill's performance in the match?
So I honestly thought like because there was so much stuff going on, like I enjoyed the match just because of the so many moving
Mhm.
parts. And honestly, I was more excited that Jakara Jackson and Last Legend got to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And in the sense of because they're essentially NXT. And so like I think it's really cool that they've been brought into the fold even to like be involved in the match, let alone being in Saudi. I think that was
Mhm.
huge. I
Right.
think out of this whole match, I'm more enamored at Jakara Jackson and Lash Legends being there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And obviously I wanted them to win, but like, but the fact that they were there says absolute like like it just an extreme amount of respect for the work that those two girls are doing. Because they could have done a triple threat. They could have tossed in someone else. They could have,
Mhm.
but the fact that, the women's tag team title is essentially a tri-branded championship. So I feel like getting things from all different perspectives, the people in different shows and everything else got to be, because essentially they started, the first Sunday match was just two women, and
Yep.
we've progressed and we've progressed. And like I've said before, is that the amount of influence that WWE has had on, essentially Middle Eastern culture, is it speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Because now it wasn't just two, now it's eight. You know,
Right.
and I think that like from a global perspective, you know, a collab that they have with the Saudis, it just speaks volumes to the impact that WWE has not on just North American culture, but global culture. And I think
Right.
they are an absolute segue to opening doors for opportunities. And I think it was just really good for WWE and Saudi Arabia and just the culture. So I honestly really just it was just a good match. Period. Like
Good.
I just I don't have anything bad to say. I really don't because I was looking at it from a culture standpoint
Mhm.
than a North American show
Right.
perspective.
Yeah. Where we
Because
break
the
apart everyone's
yeah, I mean,
move
I
sets
wasn't
and everything
I
else.
wasn't
Yeah.
psychoanalyzing
Yeah.
anything but the moment that it was.
Right. Right.
You
Which
know,
which I hope that it's really huge. Huge step forward for more athletic performances by women in Saudi Arabia. And if the WWE leaves one thing there when their deal expires, it's that, maybe it starts to have more conversations where you
right.
change that thinking, for
And
women
it's yeah,
performing. Yep.
it was just a great moment. I
Yeah.
mean, it just really was, and I just I can't emphasize enough, the fact that you have we think we've been doing Crown Jewel for I think what 3 or 4 years,
Oh no, it's got to
or
be, it's got to be longer than that.
well, maybe I mean 5, 6, I don't know. But the fact that we've broken through that much barriers in that less than 10-year time, like
Yeah.
you know, I don't know how long we're doing it. You can fact check on that, but
It looks like 2018.
okay.
So
So I mean, that's still
maybe
only 6 years.
yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
fact that
I mean,
we went into women's matches, into
Yep.
now 8
Yeah.
women matches. I mean, that speaks volumes, and I think,
Hmm.
that's the thing about WWE is that it's a global product for everyone, and I'm just glad that it's breaking barriers, that seems to be nobody else is trying to break. So it's just good. Like
Yep.
I mean, like flat out, I just think it's good, and I think it, because that very first moment when it was, what was it? Was it Natalia and
Yeah. Yep.
the Marine
Natalia,
girl,
Lacey Evans.
Lacey Evans? Like that moment, just sitting in that moment.
Mm.
Like there's just moments in WWE like that. Yes, you're performers. Yes, you don't like each other on TV, but sometimes you just breathe in the moment. I mean, think of the first time women headlined WrestleMania.
Yep.
Like just that moment. I mean, and I think like sometimes you have to break yourself away from who you love and hate to just
Hmm.
acknowledge what the product is, because I mean, it went from, the old era, the old eras of, WWF that was just women were kind of just gimmicks, and then like in the 90s they got kind of more established but still in kind of dumb matches, and then from like what 2000 like 10 to like 2020 they were listed as divas,
Yeah,
somewhere in
that was
in
yeah.
that realm, which even depleted the progress the 90s made,
Right.
to saying women's world champion.
Yep.
And so like to from where we, where the product was to where the product is now, it's it's
It's definitely always changing, especially with social norms and constructs, and understanding that women can perform on the highest level and put on amazing shows and tells great stories, and that yeah, um,
so yeah, I
but
mean
the reason
honestly,
yeah.
like, it's just been fun to, be a part of the WWE universe that is, basically we're ride or die fans. Like, you know, we don't, it's like versus other sports entertainment, you have your favorite people, you have this, but like
Right.
it's just like WWE Universe is a fan of the product,
Yeah.
period. You know, and so it doesn't matter like who's going on, what's going on. It's for me, I feel like is some of the best entertainment you can possibly do.
Yeah.
You know, movies, it's scripted, but everything else in between is not. So,
Yep.
but so Seth freaking Rollins versus Bronson Reed. I honestly, this was probably one of my favorite matches just because like there was stuff going on before the match actually technically started. And so, and honestly, I'm a Seth Rollins guy. I more than not even just because we have the same name,
Mm,
but like honestly, like I'm a Seth Rollins guy. I literally just bought another one of his shirts. I'm up for like 4 plus a keychain. I have a lanyard. But and man, like he can perform, period.
yeah.
Like and his outfits, they're outlandish. But like, if there's no honestly, I don't think anyone else could pull it off. I really don't. I mean, I am a revolutionary, like just it's it just works for him. And I dare bet I would love to see the rack of outfits he has and like
Yeah.
how he goes about picking them out. Like when
I
he had
thought
those
he
big
had
red
like
boots.
yeah, I thought yeah, I know he has like a designer, but I don't know if the designer is like um if he like stores his outfits for him
Right.
or they're just like one-offs, because
I mean,
you, you know,
he's never really wears the same outfit twice. So like,
you know,
like they're selling them back in Paris. So like, this is a Seth Rollins outfit, like
yeah.
it's just fun. Obviously, he finally gets his revenge essentially on Bronson Reed, and it was crazy out the gate. I mean, like a tsunami out the gate, a stomp out the gate. Like, honestly, from a like overall like match perspective, honestly, this is probably one of my top ones of the night. I'd probably say number two.
Hmm.
You know, obviously, I would say Cody Rhodes and Gunther was definitely my top.
Yeah.
Um, but so freaking Tiffany Stratton, okay? So, and I think I'm on the same level as probably a majority of people that thought Liv Morgan defeating Nia Jax with again the help from the outside. Like she's like the Barry Bonds of wrestling right now, where cool you have stats, but you're cheating. Like her accomplishments are tainted by her cheating.
All right.
You know what
Okay.
I'm saying? Like she's corking her bat like Albert Bell, okay?
All right.
Like I don't like it. I want her to finally have like, and I get it. It's the Judgment Day mantra, the whole gimmick. But like if you want me to take you seriously, just give me like, and especially the prestige of this particular match, right? Because
Mhm.
obviously Gunther and Cody Rhodes was a straight up banger, good match, no question of who was the better person. But with Liv and Nia, it was very one sided because of all the interference. I mean, and it's sad that it takes Raquel Rodriguez and Dominic to basically help Liv win. Like, it's the same thing I've said
Well,
before. Is that like,
I mean, it
show me your
would,
dominance when you win by
because
yourself?
it wouldn't have been like, it wouldn't have been believable if it was just Liv
Well,
Morgan,
yeah. I mean, well,
going
then
up
they
against
should have
Nia
just let Nia
Jax.
win.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I 100% agree. I think this should have been the year of Nia Jax,
because
showing
Queen
just
of the
how
Ring
dominant she is.
wins the championship, wins the
Yep,
crown jewel. Like
yep,
Liv can take the L and move on with her day, but I feel
yep.
like this
And
would have meant
there's so
more
many.
to Nia
There's,
Jax's
yeah.
overwhelming year of dominance. Because she returned, she's been
Hmm.
dominant, and then you have her drop a title. I mean, I would say it's like
Yeah,
not the title; it's literally going to stay in the
yeah.
WWE whatever
I
thing at
think
Saudi.
if this was anywhere else for like a trophy or anything
Right.
else, um, 9 times out of 10, Nia Jax would have won the match, and you know, we would have just been like, well, it's the year of
Right.
Nia Jax, But
Yeah. I mean,
you
it's.
know, yeah, there was a
I don't
request by the
think this
Saudis.
is, yeah.
I guess that they were doing the booking. It was a request by the
Right.
Saudis, so
And I
yeah.
don't I don't think this is the last time Nia Jax is getting her hands on Liv.
I would not be surprised if Liv is the catalyst for her losing, Nia Jax losing to Tiffany Stratton. You
Mm,
know what? Yeah, I'll set it up. I think there's probably a little bit more there that we can get that could be interesting.
right. Yeah.
Or we could just get the absolute biggest swerve and plot twist. Tiffany Stratton takes out Liv Morgan, and that's who we got now.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I'm glad that it could go either way. Um,
but Tiffany
yeah.
Stratton has plenty of time to cash in. So I
Oh yeah.
mean, like, I think she's had, a handful of potential cash-ins, much like Damian Priest did. And so I think eventually we're going to get it. But I feel like the storylines right now just don't like give her the reason to cash in. I feel like it's gonna be out of nowhere. It's gonna work, and it's gonna be like it's gonna happen. We're gonna be like, you know what, you know, and, and so like it's there's so many times where people have the money in the bank that they get their cash in thwarted. So
Mhm.
like I feel like this just falls in line with that. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's more likely that Tiffany cashes in on Nia. With me, I think that's more probable being on the same show, but I will not count out her cashing in on Liv Morgan though.
Yeah.
So So it's going to be an adventure. Like, we don't know when Tippy time is exactly. So, we will just wait and see. And that's kind of the skinny. Um, so now you have Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, which, holy crap. Like, like like this delivered at such a high level that it was a no contest, but it was just like it was a fight. Like, and then this is the because obviously we had like 6 or 7 matches listed for Crown Jewels, so I feel like this was the one match that was like, you know what, I don't even care if it goes on. Like, just go fight around the stadium and go do what you do, because you have the veracity of Randy Orton and you have this newfound like chip on his shoulder, Kevin Owens, which is kind of justified.
Every
You
other
know,
year, we get Kevin Owens with a chip on his shoulder. I mean, it's
this
just,
is true.
yeah.
This is
So
true.
it's
I
par for the
did,
course.
but the thing is, but like I did like the, just the more like in the car, like little video vignettes and stuff like that of him talking, and you know, and then like we said last week, is it's like Kevin Owens is one of those guys where it's like he never really truly functions with people. Like, he's not a guy that's gonna have like this 4 or 5 year tag team partner, or he's gonna have this faction he's gonna fit into. He's just freaking Kevin Owens. He's the prize fighter, and that's just what he is, and that's where that's the like the headspace he lives in. And
Right.
and I think that he's kind of, I wouldn't say Randy Orton esque, because Randy Orton kind of factioned a couple times, but like the same, like the intensity that they have though, like just the fact that Kevin Owens, I mean, like when he needs to be brutal, he gonna be brutal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I
Definitely.
think that like that's just the character I think that's just that's the recipe that works best for Kevin Owens.
Right.
You know what? And it's been working for a long time. Why change it?
Nope.
You
I
know,
don't. Yeah.
it's like you said, every year we're getting Kevin Owens with a new chip. So like, you know what? Let it ride. Let's see where maybe we'll get Kevin Owens versus Randy in a no DQ or a last man standing or whatever.
Yeah.
This
We'll
is
get
one of those
something
like,
from.
I don't even
Yeah.
care how long this really goes,
Right.
but maybe this is that, maybe this is turning into Drew McIntyre CM Punk 2.0.
No,
You
I don't. I
know,
don't think. I don't think it'll
I,
get.
well, I
I
don't
don't
think
think it'll.
there's
Yeah. There.
not as much depth to this story as that.
Right. It's like,
So
yeah.
it's
So
yeah, it'll
yeah.
be fun. Honestly, like I'm for it. I'm all for it. I'm all for something that where it's just like, you know what, just let them fight.
Yeah.
Period.
So
Because you always get those where like you get these
yeah.
guys that come each other out, they come each other in the ring and everything, and then they're just
Mhm.
like, let them fight, and like the whole
Right.
crowd's just like, let them fight, let them fight.
So
Like,
speaking of let them fight, so Randy Orton did probably one of the greatest things ever in his illustrious career, is that he RKO'd Adam Pearce.
mm-hmm.
And I really wish he would have punt kicked him as well.
Ooh.
I don't like Adam Pearce. I don't. And I told you I was going to tell you the reason why I don't like Adam Pearce.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what Adam Pearce's X.com handle is? His screen name?
It was
Yep.
like something daddy or something, scrap daddy or something like
Scrap
that.
Daddy.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I hate Adam Pearce because of his X.com handle.
Right.
I change that. Change that to Adam Pearce WWE.
Right.
Especially since you got embarrassed by the absolute monster that is known as the Legend Killer Randy Orton. You can no longer have Scrap Daddy as your username. change that, Adam Pierce. And I know you'll find out because you'll make one of those goofy old videos with the little cell phone cameras. No, you know what?
Put him
No.
in a match with Randy Orton, and we'll
Yes.
just let that
You know what?
play out.
It wouldn't be a match. It would be a slaughter. It would be an RKO. And I want
He can be scrapped, Daddy.
yes, scrapped daddy. Yeah, no, I don't. That's the reason why I don't like Adam Pierce. Not because I think he's a bad authority figure or
Right.
that he has won the NWA championship 5 times, and R-Truth I think has only won it once or twice at most, twice. No, it's his Twitter handle, and I don't see him as a scrap daddy. Nick Aldis, yeah, if that was his Twitter handle, I'd be like, yeah, it kind of matches. You've got the size, you can go. And I've seen your work. Adam
Right.
Pierce, no, absolutely not.
And I think there's gonna be there's definitely gonna be repercussions. We don't, and I don't even care what they are, because he's gonna eat another RKO if he talks smack to literally a 20-year veteran who has made a name, RKO out of nowhere.
I don't think there's going to be any repercussions because that was a Raw authority figure who put himself into a SmackDown situation.
Right.
You know, 100%. So maybe, just maybe, this is what triggers War Games or Survivor Series matches,
right.
Raw versus SmackDown. So maybe that's why we got this angle. But I appreciate Randy Orton for the hard work that he did during that match. You know,
yeah,
that was his gift to me, and I appreciate it, Randy. Thank you.
You're like, it's not my birthday, but that's a great present.
It was, yeah.
So we have the United States Championship match between LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade. And I know I think pretty much, I don't know exactly how we predicted because I don't remember that far. But it was literally last week. But like, I was pulling for Carmelo Hayes to win this.
I think it was I think I went with LA Knight.
Yeah.
I think I did.
And the thing is too is that if you actually have noticed, is that LA Knight has a custom belt.
How custom
like
is
the leather part of it says LA on it, right? And I don't know if most people have actually picked up on that, because it's not like he has this whole LA Knight imprintment on like the whole part of like a pattern across his whole belt. Okay. But I don't know if that means he's going to have it for a long time or something. I don't know. Or that's going to be a WWE shop thing. I don't know. But like, I was really kind of pushing for Carmelo Hayes just because I feel like LA Knight is becoming a slight heel. I think obviously people still like him because the whole LA Knight, yeah, like thing, but like, he's a lovable person who seems to have kind of gotten sick of being a nice guy.
But isn't that the reason why we got him to go from Max Dupree to back to LA Knight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, honestly, I feel like the Max Dupree thing was kind of like we've said before, that was a gimmick to see if you could deal with that gimmick. Right. And and then obviously once he turned LA Knight, then obviously it just catapulted him.
Right.
But I don't know, like, I mean, honestly, who on, I don't know if it's on, it was United States Championship on Raw or SmackDown. But like, I mean, who's next though? I mean, if Carmelo Hayes and Andrade had this whole best of 7 thing where it got basically debunked by LA Knight, and then you have them run back a triple threat with the same result. Like, who's next for LA Knight? Honestly, like, it's very tricky. Like, because we've been having this trifecta of confrontation amongst those three, you know, culminating to another triple threat match where LA Knight wins again. I feel like
I
Andrade is the odd man out in this scenario
yeah, I
because Carmelo's getting pushed, you know, as being a first round draft pick. And Andrade came back to really didn't seem like much plans for him. I mean, they actually did mention that he was a speed champion, but that means jack shit. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but so we have the main event, Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, and again, like I said before, this was an actual clean match, no nonsense, and I don't think, and obviously, you know, you had Sheamus and Ludwig fight beforehand, so yeah, obviously it isn't, you know, obviously on Friday, so I didn't feel like there was going to be much interaction. Um, and I thought honestly, it was just a good, clean match. It was just a straight up match, no nonsense, just, you know, and it could have gone either way. Um, but obviously, I think, you know, like you said, the Saudi was choosing the outcomes. So, you know, Cody's the lovable Cody Rhodes, you know, and so I feel like that's the outcome that they wanted. That's the outcome that they got.
right.
But I don't feel like we're gonna see the severe or the sincerity or the like what's gonna become of this title because I don't like is it I feel like it's gonna be like a name etch because you know what if these guys aren't the champions next year, right? Like, and I guarantee they won't. And so like how does that work? You know, like I thought like I know the title's cool, but I feel like it would have been almost made just as much sense to have like a type of memorial to it or something, or like having like an Honor the Giant Battle Royal type of thing with like him holding like that like a replica of that size of a championship maybe, you know, because how are they going to determine who does it next year? Like, you know, does the next person get to, you know, because how are they going to
I
have it
think
defended the next year between
I
the
don't
champion
think it
versus
gets
champion?
I don't think it gets defended. It might be just a one-off thing. Um, and I think it is something along the lines of, hey, whoever's the champions next year, if this is what they want to do, we just run it. You know, it's just what
Yeah,
it is. It's not going to be no four-way match. Gunther lost, so it would be Cody Rhodes if he was up for it or he was still with the company, and whomever that they wanted to have representing it.
yeah,
But at the same, you know,
it's
and
I don't, it's weird.
maybe that's
I don't
a
know.
route that they go, or other, you know, or it's just two more champions. Who knows? You know what? It's Let's see what happens next year.
Right? I mean,
You know,
don't they have another Saudi show though?
if they do, I don't care.
I don't know. I think they too have two Saudi shows, I believe. I could be wrong, um, but yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see next year, and then we'll get our answer. Because I feel like it doesn't make. I feel like it's more of like a list of champions versus the champion. I feel like it's more of an accomplishment than a championship. So, you know, but we'll see what happens this week. Obviously, there's, you know, we got War Games here in about 2-3 weeks, end of the month. So it's, you know, we'll see what develops. I don't know how fast because obviously we have the War Games match, and then there's probably gonna be two of them. So like, what's the other one? You know, are we gonna have, you know, the because I feel like there's gonna have to be a men and a women. So if they have the bloodline stuff, like what is the flip side of that with the females? I it's
Man, it could go so many different ways. All right, so let's say we have the bloodline. All right, so
hmm
bloodline versus bloodline, 4-on-4 war game style. Okay, then we have a traditional Survivor Series that could be women. All right, then we have a traditional men's Survivor Series. Then we have That's like 3 matches. Then we'll have probably a couple singles matches. Um, I then we have Raw versus SmackDown, or Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Um, you know,
So
so I think there's going
I'm
to
looking at
be,
a couple
yeah,
predictions. They
yeah.
have, so according to the Sportskeeda predictions, they have a
Mhm.
Team Ripley versus Team Morgan.
Well,
And then
Ripley
you
is
have
out because of her,
the whole
because of
bloodline
an
stuff.
injury. Yeah, Ripley is out.
Well, I
So
mean, they said, they said, indefinitely, but I mean, it's WWE. I mean, you never know. I
yeah,
mean,
you're right. Yeah,
if they wrote her off, they wrote her off, I guess, and then, but I just feel like obviously there's gonna be a men's and a women's. We just don't know
yeah,
how that really pans out, and we'll probably find out here in the next probably I'd say 2 weeks by the time we get any kind of indication of a female match. I think
right.
the week 3, I think we'll get, because I'd say by week 3 we have that match. Week 4 will be the advantage match, like they always have.
Yeah,
So,
but you
I
know
think
what?
that like 3 weeks we're gonna get the men and women's, War Games match, and then week 4, the Monday or the Friday before that, we will get the typical advantage match.
Right.
So I mean that's usually how it plays out. So yeah. So we essentially have 3 weeks to figure out what we're doing, and
I was
and
just sitting here just,
maybe they'll fast pace it. I mean,
yeah.
maybe we'll get, you know
I
Jade
wouldn't.
Cargill and Bianca along with, 2 other people or 3 other people versus, maybe we'll get a Bailey in there, a Naomi
I
in
can't.
there.
I can't imagine how they're going to put all of these matches and their length on one PLE and have people sit there and watch all of them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because a
I mean,
Bloodline versus
matches are
Bloodline War Games
usually about
match that could be like 30 minutes.
the War Games matches are usually about 30 to 45.
Right.
And then you have 2
And
of
it's
those. There's the roughly 2 hours of the show. Um, and then let's say you have, maybe they'll have 3 other matches. Maybe we'll see Nia Jax versus Tiffany Stratton or something. Maybe we'll get a Nia Jax versus Liv Morgan. Maybe we'll get that run back and inside of the cage, so it'll be a little bit more definitive. Maybe that'll be the quick squash match.
yeah.
You
Like
know,
it just
and so it's
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see.
Right.
That is how it goes in WWE, because stories are subject to change, much like Michigan weather. So
Yep.
like, you know what? Let's just stew. We'll just stew,
All
and we
right.
will see what happens. And and I feel like we're going to get more definitive direction here in the next couple weeks, anyways. So
Yep.
I think at least in the next 2 weeks we're going to get a more definitive direction to War Games. Week 3 we're going to get more established. Week 4 we're going to get those the advantage matches. So
Right.
I think this week is going to be a lot of fallout from Crown Jewel. Week 2 will be like, okay, we got War Games in 2 weeks. I don't like you, you don't like me. Okay, here's a group, let's throw them together and run it. So, I feel like this week is just going to be all fallout from Crown Jewel. I think there's going to be very little extra additive storyline building. I think we're just going to get the fallout. And now that Raw's only 2 hours, it was weird. It was so weird, Raw being 2 hours. Like, it just didn't have the same zest. Like there was like maybe 4 matches top, maybe 5 matches tops, and just a lot of nonsense in between. And I cannot wait till they go to Netflix and go back to 3 hours.
If they do, I mean, it just depends on what Netflix wants, but I digress.
I think they're gonna push back to 3 hours. I feel like they're not going to invest that much money for 2 hours of product when they know they can make more money as a 3 hour. But then they're saying SmackDown's supposed to go to 3 hours, and then it's such a kerfuffle right now. Like,
Right.
I don't know what they're doing. It's super confusing because we're in this last 2 months before Netflix launch for Raw. I don't know what SmackDown's going to entail. Maybe we're gonna get both shows 3 hours. I don't know. Because I feel like
If
the
they
fact that
decided.
I feel like it's kind of stupid because if you think about it, NXT is 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me they're going to give as much TV time to a main roster as you are developmental, essentially.
I mean,
Like,
SmackDown is 2 hours,
yeah.
and they seem to be able to tell engaging stories within 2 hours. I think because Raw has been 3 hours for so long, people are interested in it and how the show kind of drags on.
Yeah.
Be fortunate and happy and that there is still WWE Raw on Monday nights on USA, when there could not be,
Right.
So,
I mean, and
I
that's the thing is
yeah.
that it's in, we could just be getting, this could just be a temporary run to see how it goes. I mean, I'm not too thrilled with it. I mean, maybe some people are like, all right, cool. But I'm like, they come to Grand Rapids next week, and it's going to be like, if it's 2 hours,
the doors open for the Grand Rapids show on November 11th at 6:30.
so like, that's
So it's
weird.
probably a 7 o'clock start time. So that means
Well, they
there's
usually run main event
right.
they run like a couple matches of main event. So I don't know.
I mean,
You know
I,
what?
I I'm there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough TV. There's going to be enough entertainment. I think people are going to be happy, in Grand
I think
Rapids.
we'll be fine. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, we get what we get, and we don't throw a fit, right? So
Yep.
We'll wait and see how everything pans out. We will put a proverbial pin in that. So we'll see you guys next week. We'll hopefully Tim doesn't have to work again, so we can be back
Come
at full
back,
strength.
Tim. Yep.
Back to more, yeah. So this is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.